welcome back to another video about how to heal adoption and narcissistic abuse. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lærke Theodora. I work as a spiritual and psychological counselor, and I am an adoptee myself. So, in this video, I want to dive into some of the reasons that we need to play with our inner child when we are adopted. So what happens when we were being adopted is that we were not given the optimal circumstances, safe environment, secure environment, predictable environment to feel safe enough to play. Playing is one of the core needs that all children need in order to develop a healthy sense of self. If their surroundings don't support them in playing, using their imagination, having fun, visualizing, using their body, being grounded in themselves, being allowed to dream and make stories and really develop this internal world, if they're not allowed to do that, or if they can't do it because of the circumstances, they're too unsafe, too unpredictable, too unstable, then they're not going to develop a strong sense of self. And this is something that I see a lot in the adopted people that I have worked with, that their internal world is very, very fragile, is very unstable. Look at it like that their foundation, that their life were built on, is too unstable. It's simply crumbling at some point in their adulthood. This fragile, unstable foundation, it will crumble. And that's when we often hit this really, really low point in our life. Maybe you have experienced that already in your life, that you just hit this deep, deep hole in your life where everything just seems so impossible and it feels like nothing matters because you're almost giving up to this internal chaos that you are constantly feeling and being reminded of, and you feel like you're not succeeding with anything in your life, that you're not having any success with anything that you try or do, and then you just isolate yourself more and more and more and withdraw from the outer world simply. This can be a result of this internal world that's simply too fragile to build an adult life on. And that's why it's so important that we dive into this inner child world. What is it, this concept of the inner child? Because so many people are talking about it, right? And if you have been following my channel for a while, you probably know that I already did like an 11 days healing program for healing your abused inner child. And that program really goes deep into the healing work. But if you don't feel ready, if you don't feel strong enough at this point to feel the pain that your inner child is carrying, then I highly suggest that you start by playing with your inner child and slowly rebuilding your relationship with your inner child before you dive into all this painful part and all these suppressed emotions, because playing with your inner child is actually also an important part of healing. It's just as important as it is to sit with all the uncomfortable emotions and sit with the pain and release it and surrender to it. Playing with your inner child is just as important, because if we can't rebuild trust within our inner child, then we're never gonna fully heal whatever it is that still hurts for the inner child. So let's just break it down. What is the inner child exactly? The inner child is A part of you, you can imagine it as the most early part of you, which is also the most tiny part of you, the most early part of you that was really, really hurt when you were being taken from your mother, when you're being separated from your mother. That hurt your inner child so badly. And as I've said in also one of my recent videos, you remember all of this. You remember everything that happened. Your body remembers. Your soul remembers. Even though our brain was not developed to comprehend anything that happened, of course, depending on how old you were when you were adopted and separated from your mom, but until the age of 7, children have not developed the ability to have an inner dialogue yet, and their brain is simply too undeveloped to process what it is that's happening. That's why many adopted people, they experience when they hit the age of like 7, 9, that's when they begin to put 2 and 2 together, because their brain has finally developed enough to begin to reflect on what happened. I lost my mom, and then I was placed in a new family. What is going on here? Who are these people? So you have probably experienced that in one way or the other. But when we are very, very tiny and we have not been on earth for that many years, we are so fragile to these traumatic experiences, and we are like a sponge. Our brain is like a sponge. We are absorbing everything that we are put through. That's why it's so traumatic. But it's also so traumatic because you lost your mom. You lost the most important person in your life. And that is devastating. That is heartbreaking for a little child, no matter how old the child is. It can't distinguish between whether the mother died or you were being separated because you had to be adopted. For the child, it's the same. A loss is a loss for a child. It doesn't matter where the mother went, if she went to heaven or if she went home in her own apartment. It doesn't matter for the child. So this inner child is that part of us that experienced all of it, but were never being supported processing it. It was all alone with all these painful experiences, the traumatic events that happened. So that's one way to describe what our inner child really is. So that's one way to describe what the inner child really is, to understand the concept of the inner child. And the issue that I keep seeing in adopted people is that it was the most early part of them that were traumatized the most. So you have the extreme polarities. You have this very, very little child. Then you have this very, very heavy, tremendously painful loss, separation, abandonment, neglect, all that stuff. And then we expect that little child to cope with that. And it can't. It just can't. In my experience, so much of the pain, uncomfortable, reoccurring sensations that we're experiencing within our body, it's the most early part of us that were overwhelmed by these traumatic events. It's been drowned in these events. That's why it's hurting so much. And that's why we're so separated from the inner child, because it is trying so badly to hold on to itself. It had to separate from the outer life, from everything else in order to survive what happened. Therefore, when we begin playing with our inner child, which is a huge part of healing, it's the first step in healing the inner child, healing to the root what it is that happened to us that's so painful. We need to start playing with it, because that's the way we rebuild the trust, we rebuild the relationship. and we rebuild our foundation, because the little child within us is the foundation, is the primarily foundation, is the primal foundation. But that foundation that we have right now is useless, is completely useless. You can take it and throw it up with the garbage, because you cannot build an adult life on that foundation from what happened to you back then. That is not possible. It's not strong enough. It's not stable enough. It's too infected. What I want you to do when playing with your inner child, this can look in many, many ways, all right? So there's nothing right or wrong here. You're the expert in your life, and you are also the expert in your inner child. Some of the things I want you to begin right now, maybe take a piece of paper, begin writing down, what did you like to do? What did you love to do when you were a child? What did you love to do? Like, was it to be outside in nature, climbing in trees? Was it to feed dogs at the lake? Was it to ride your bike? Or was it to do some kind of, or was it to use your body when doing sport activities? Or was it to sit at home drawing unicorns, flowers, fields of horses? That was something that I really, really love to do. I have this huge passion for horses. Not a lot of people know that about me. I really, really love everything about horses. And I have drawn so many horses in my childhood that I am so good at drawing horses now as an adult. And sometimes I still draw horses because they just fill me up with so much pleasure, with so much joy and happiness. And I even use horses when I'm dreaming and when I have a nightmare and I wake up because of the nightmare in the middle of the night. For me to fall asleep again, I shift my focus and I force myself to visualize I'm at this field with flowers, green field with a lot of flowers, and then there's a lot of horses grassing. And I've done this since I was a child. It was something I came up with because I suffered so much from nightmares as a child. So horses has always been my go-to when reconnecting with my inner child, and I love to ride horses as well. It's not been that easy to access riding horses when I lived in the capital of Denmark. It can also be that you like to sit with pearls or you like knitting. That's also been something that I really love to do. Really love to just sit and knit sweaters, socks. And when I do this, it's first of all, it's bringing me back to the present moment. Second of all, it doesn't feel scary or dangerous or anything like that. So this is actually calming my nervous system. It's calming my brain from being in this high alert, constantly screening my surroundings like a lot of adopted people they do. And it also helps me to reconnect with the playful part of me, the joyful part of me, where I naturally get thoughts and ideas about how everything is possible in life, and that I can easier detach from the past and all the painful things that happened. So it's a way of actually moving our focus away from everything that's too overwhelming and that's too painful for us at the moment. No matter what it is that you love to do as a child, you can explore that as an adult. It can also be new things. It doesn't have to be something that you like when you're a child. It can also be a new hobby that you found out that you really like as an adult. Go play with that. And then just surrender to how good it feels inside when you do this. And be mindful that it's not always easy for us to give ourselves permission to have fun again and to experience joy again. If we have been too long in this state of self-destructing patterns, and if we have been too long in this self-hate mode, and too long in this toxic shame, and too long in feeling unlovable, it might not be that easy to just begin having fun and play again, because it can have been too long since you did it the last time. I remember that from my own life. I wanted to do something fun, and then I instantly felt like, but you don't deserve it. You don't deserve to have fun because you're not that important. You're not worth it. There was a part of me, the part of me that was like infected with toxic shame. That part of me made me feel like I shouldn't do it, that it was wrong to do it. Just be very, very observant of what happens if this happens, because then you need to stop these thoughts and say, nope. I'm not gonna listen to you right now because I'm gonna have fun and I deserve it and I look forward to it and it's gonna be amazing and I'm gonna laugh so much, I'm gonna feel so good about myself, I'm gonna feel so energized in my body. Say that to yourself if these thoughts or emotions come and try to stop you from doing it. And I would love to hear what kind of fun you have felt inspired to do after watching this video. And if you feel ready to move on to deeper healing work, then you can always go watch the 11 Days Healing Program. I highly recommend that. I believe the first video is actually also about rebuilding this trust within your inner child. Otherwise, I am gonna see you in my next video. I'm sending you all my love and blessings. Take care until next time.